The Pentagon is urging restraint.
The president has been very clear that we stand with Israel in their self-defense, but we really don't want to see a wider war, a wider regional conflict, and we don't seek war with Iran.
Administration officials say they've imposed more than 500 sanctions on Iran and its entities and say more are coming. Well, the world's still watching anxiously after Iran's weekend drone attack on Israel. Now, how will the country respond? And could this escalate conflict even further? Roop Raj joins us now with a preview of Let It Rip. Hey, Roop.
Hey there, Jamie. Yeah, you said it best. I mean, on Saturday, I think if you looked at social media, sadly, the words World War III were actually trending on Twitter. And the reason, or formerly Twitter, now X, but the reason that was on there and the reason so many people are talking about it was because no one really understood what would happen next after that attack that happened. So just to kind of lay a little bit of this land for you and let you know, everyone knows October 7th is when the conflict began with Hamas in Gaza. Well, it was after that there was an attack on the Iranian consulate in Syria in which two Israeli generals, or two, I should say, Iranian generals were killed in that attack. And many people now pointing the fingers right at Israel, saying you did that. And so because of that, Iran came back angrily on Saturday and had this massive launch, more than 300 drones and missiles flying into Israel. 99% of them were intercepted by the Israeli army and by allies. And so that is good news for the folks on the ground in Israel. However, now many people are saying, what's next? What will Israel do to respond? And that's where the fear lies right now. Where will this conflict take us next? So far, Israel is saying they still are trying to decide whether and how to respond. Think about those words. They're measured words. World leaders don't just speak from the seat of their pants. They talk calculated, and they're talking about whether and how he will respond. We're talking about Benjamin Netanyahu, the prime minister of Israel. However, it is expected that there will be some kind of a response. Now, here's the issue, Jamie. The Iranian prime minister and many others in the military brass in Iran say even the tiniest of an attack onto Iran in retaliation for this will then be met with what they're calling a massive and harsh response. Now you're talking about that fear that people had on Saturday about a world engaged with war. Yes, we're talking about China picking sides and Syria and the U.S. and the U.K. And so certainly this is a scary time, but one that we will really want to unpack tonight. We want to sit down and talk to two people. One, Osama Sablani, the editor of the Arab American News. He has very strong opinions. He thinks that Benjamin Netanyahu, the Israeli prime minister, he says he's a war criminal. We also have Rocky Rachkowski, who's a U.S. military veteran and a commentator who's on Let It Rip quite a bit, a conservative who's on the side of Israel, who says Israel has a right to defend itself. And we're going to kind of get into this a little bit about what happened in the last few weeks, in the last few days, and what we can expect moving forward.
Yeah, Rupin, this puts President Biden in yet another tough position as we get closer to the November election. Many not only wondering how Israel will respond, but also the U.S. But Biden has said that we will not support a counterattack. And you already mentioned that Iran has also warned that if Israel retaliates, it will be met with a massive response.
Yeah, the massive and harsh response that they're promising the Iranian government is and its military. You said it. Look, this is all happening in the shadow of the 500-pound elephant in the room, which is, of course, the big election. And we all know that every day that goes by is another poll that will be pulled as they ask Americans what they think about how this president is performing. You know, if you look at history, it's an interesting read if you look at history, because wartime presidents generally start polling a little bit better. And so there are some people who are conservatives who say, wait a minute here, Mr. Biden, President Biden, don't use this as an opportunity to engage. But if you notice, as you just mentioned, he's not. He's actually said, hey, we condemn this attack. We don't think it was good. It was a terrible idea. Iran shouldn't have done it. But let's not escalate this any further. And Mr. Biden has been very calculated in how he speaks to Mr. Netanyahu. He doesn't agree 100% with the way he's handled this. So it's an interesting place politically to see. It's not so clean, the red and the blue, when it comes to where they land on this.
And another big topic tonight, former President Donald Trump and his ongoing trial. This is the first former president we've seen in a criminal trial. And again, it's all happening as Election Day gets closer here.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, the two Let It Rip topics are all happening with that huge elephant we talk about. But the biggest elephant in the room, the GOP right now, watching this one even more carefully right now. And the reason is because they have 7 jurors that were seated. And I want you to keep this in mind. Just literally 6 minutes ago, they finally seated 2 jurors. But that was after 2 jurors were kicked off. because the prosecution didn't think that they were fair. In fact, one of the jurors that right now is in question is juror number 430. This is interesting, Jamie. They scoured this person's Facebook account, and they basically found that in 2020, juror number 430, who, by the way, is a juror right now that could end up, serving in this trial. The prosecution says don't do it. Why? Because this juror called Donald Trump a racist, a sexist, a narcissist, and said this person's unchristian. That was all in posts from 2020. So 4 years later, what you posted on Facebook is coming back and will determine the fate of this juror. To seat a fair jury, is it possible with anyone who's this big, this giant, whether you like him or not? This is a magnanimous figure. This is the former president of the United States. Can this guy get a fair trial for this hush money trial? And so many conservatives are saying, forget about it. It's not going to happen. There's no way that a jury can actually be objective and fair in this case. And how much of an uphill struggle will it be to seat this jury? We're watching that unfold right now in real time.
Yeah, not only that, but will this hurt or help his run for president again?
You know what? Every single time that Donald Trump has been on trial for all of the indictments, the federal indictments, some of these civil trials, every single time, what does he do right when he leaves the courtroom? He makes himself available to the press. What does he do when he's done making himself available to the press? His poll numbers often have inched upward.
Wow.
And so bottom line is many of his followers and some people who are on the fence who think that the Justice Department and the justice system is being weaponized against Trump, they're sympathizing with him. And if you don't like Donald Trump, the trial, no trial, it's not going to affect you, right?
Right.
But the people on the fence, that's who we're watching really carefully right now. So Let It Rip's going to be interesting. We have two very distinct people in terms of their opinions being bipolar, right? We have Sheila Cockrell, a very popular Democrat in Detroit who served at city council. She's a very wise woman. She's going to be coming on, and she's going to be talking to a conservative, Jim Johnson, who's also very prominent in the media world here in Michigan, and he's a big Trump supporter. So the two of them are going to get at it tonight at 10:30 on Let It Rip. And Jamie, you know how it is. If you can't watch it live on TV, you can watch it on the Fox Local app. Can't watch it in real time, you go back to Fox Local tomorrow at noon. And
Watch
you go
the replay.
watch Let It Rip. It's a great show, and we hope you'll join us.
Looking forward to it. Thank you, Roop.
Thanks, Jamie.